Sure, we got everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Kastner. I'm with the NDG Historical Society. Um, we've been around for a little while. Um, and today I just want to talk about this little complex here. And in part, it's introduced because it's a way station, since we didn't want to have too long to go from Sherwood Forest to the next station. But it's also a kind of interesting way station in housing in NDG. So this complex here, and I brought a nice little picture of it as a sketch, was built between 1957 and 1963. And so that's a period I kind of think of as peak NDG. NDG was developed in kind of, I'll say, three phases, with the final phase being the post-war that Chris Lyons and Jason talked about. So we're talking about the baby boom, things are growing. Montreal at that point really had the wind in its sails. It was the center of Canada, it was the biggest city of Canada. They saw this place growing tremendously. At that time, they were predicting the city was going to grow to 5 million by the year 1980, I think.
Yeah.
So growth was in mind, and so in those days, and I think that what's interesting here, this is all private development, so it's not social housing, but people would invest in housing, and so they built these towers, and you can see they're handsome looking buildings, and if you look at the names like Brasilia and I think Americana and Riviera, they're trying to sell luxury living, and I have some of the ads here. So the last of them, the one over here that has a pool at it, the Bahama, it says prestige privacy, perfection without extravagance, and yeah, it's you could see they were trying to sell lifestyle, and that worked at that point. So in NDG, people weren't really thinking about social housing at the time. They had built Benny Farm, they had built with government subsidy West Haven Elmhurst, and so at this point it was kind of left in the hands of private enterprise. And so this is kind of a kind of happy moment, and I've been through all the records of the community council through the 60s, and people were oblivious to social needs at this point. It was only starting in the late 60s that they started to get sensitive to the fact that there was a lot of outward pressure. So in that time, you've got a picture, NDG is being bypassed. They're building all the western suburbs. So this is becoming more urbanized. And so it's only in the late 60s that you start seeing some concerns. And I think of two people involved. One was a city councilor named John Parker, and the other was a man who was once president, of course, of the community council, Cy DeRoche, who started getting concerned because the demographic was changing. NDG, the first big building boom was in the 20s up to the Depression, and then this other one, people were starting to age, and so they were starting to get a lot of seniors, and so there's a movement for seniors housing that came late in the 60s. But at the time these things were built, it was still baby boom, it was still growth. NDG peaked in population somewhere between the time that these were being finished, somewhere between 1961 and 1966. It hit its peak at 81,000. It dropped down to about 60,000, and now we've never grown. We keep thinking, oh, we're densifying. We're back to 68,000. We were much denser at the time these buildings were built than we are at present.
Are they 2 or 3 bedroom apartments, or what is the size of them?
That's a good question. I'm going to go to the ads to see, and maybe if you want, you can look at them. I'm pretty sure they're pretty spacious. I watched the 2002 World Cup in one of these apartments, and it was a 3-bedroom. It was a 3-bedroom apartment.
Can I tell you some of the things that there is some? Yeah, one of the building, I don't know which one of them, it has a swimming pool. It closed the swimming pool, built 8 apartments, and the apartment that were 1.5, it changed to 2.5 in some floors, and doubling the rent, and the people are continuously taken to the time. because they keep increasing the rent of them. And many of the people I know that the new arrival, they didn't have a lot, they come and live here. It was very affordable rent in here. Even some people who work in the community, they have a space to live. Otherwise, I like to hire locally, and now most of my staff are leaving the NDG because they cannot afford. So it's not about social housing only we care about, it's affordable housing. So Mona can come back to NDG, Judy can come back in NDG, Aris can live in NDG, but all my staff now going away because they cannot afford it. And this area is one of them. The apartment was between 600 for 3.5 to 700. And now I don't want to say the prices, it's very high.
Bear with us, we have about half an hour left and we have the most interesting part for me and the more contemporary part where you can also help yourself. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will take the overpass.
Probably.
And go
yeah,
to-
yeah.
Yeah, all your guests.
Can't understand. And I think video is interesting.